All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring the fascinating and honestly pretty complex story of Thomas Edison. We often think of him purely as this magical wizard of technology, right? The guy who literally conquered darkness. But we're going to evaluate a much deeper narrative here. We need to look at how his undeniable, world-altering genius as an inventor was constantly clashing with his increasingly ruthless tactics as a businessman. To truly understand this historical giant, we'll be covering 1. The commercial inventor, 2. Credit in the factory, 3. The war of currents, 4. Patents and monopolies, and finally, a complex moral legacy. Section 1. The commercial inventor, from poverty to profit. So to really understand his relentless drive, we have to start with his origins. They're inspiring, but they were incredibly difficult. He overcame severe childhood poverty, illnesses, and even partial deafness from a train accident. Because of all this, Edison developed an absolutely relentless work ethic. His worldview was pretty simple. As he famously put it, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. But actually, his real turning point as a businessman came right after a crushing defeat. See, his very first patented invention was a legislative vote recorder. He built it. It worked perfectly, but it totally failed. Why? Because politicians in Massachusetts didn't actually want to vote that quickly. So nobody bought it, and the whole venture nearly bankrupted him. Well, Edison made a vow right then and there. He said, "I find out what the world needs, then I proceed to invent." And this right here is the exact moment his inner moral conflict began. He vowed to never invent something without a commercial demand. Now, sure, it was a brilliant business decision that brought him incredible riches, like a cool $40,000 payout for a stock ticker system when he was just 24. But it also fundamentally shifted his priorities, away from pure scientific discovery and straight toward commercial dominance, and that eventually blurred his moral compass. Moving on to Section 2, Credit in the Factory, the Wizard of Menlo Park. Taking his new fortune, Edison basically pioneered the concept of the idea factory over in New Jersey. He drove his assistants, which he literally called his insomnia squad, for days on end to perfect inventions. Now, this brings up a real modern moral controversy. Was he a pure inventor or just a really shrewd boss who bought ideas? Let's break it down. For massive inventions like the typewriter, the telephone, and the incandescent light bulb, Edison wasn't actually the original creator. Instead, his team meticulously improved upon existing designs to make them commercially viable. For example, he tested thousands of materials before finding the right carbonized filament to make a light bulb actually last. On the flip side, the phonograph, a device that recorded and played back sound, was entirely his own original concept, which was famously inspired by his deafness. So yeah, while he was a pretty ruthless businessman who frequently took the lion's share of the glory for his assistants' work, you absolutely cannot deny his own sheer brilliance. That brings us to Section 3, the War of Currents, the ultimate betrayal. So, after perfecting the incandescent light bulb, Edison needed a whole industry to actually deliver the electricity to power it. And here is where the dark side of his ambition truly emerged, right against a young, altruistic Serbian genius named Nikola Tesla. These two men fundamentally disagreed on how to transmit power. Edison had already heavily invested millions of dollars and hundreds of patents into direct current, or DC. The problem? It was highly limited. It could really only travel in short 2-mile radiuses. Tesla, on the other hand, correctly believed that alternating current, or AC, was scientifically superior, cheaper, and could easily travel massive distances. But Edison, he stubbornly stuck with direct current just to protect his massive financial investments and, frankly, his ego. Knowing Tesla's genius, Edison really wanted to keep him focused on fixing his flawed DC system. So he promised the young immigrant a massive bonus of $50,000. By the way, that's over $1.6 million today. He told him he'd get it if he could successfully improve Edison's inefficient DC motors. Tesla, driven by the challenge and obviously the promised reward, worked tirelessly and quickly accomplished the seemingly impossible task. But when Tesla eagerly asked for his money, Edison literally laughed it off. He told him, "Tesla, when you become a full-fledged American, you will appreciate an American joke." Wow. This wasn't just bad business, it was a profound ethical failure. This ultimate betrayal prompted Tesla to quit on the spot. He actually ended up digging ditches to survive for a while, but his departure sparked the infamous War of the Currents. This era really highlights Edison's ultimate moral descent. Tesla eventually partnered with George Westinghouse to fund his vastly superior AC system. Recognizing his commercial empire was actively losing, Edison didn't try to, make a better product. Instead, he orchestrated a horrific propaganda campaign.
He started by planting lies in the press about the dangers of AC. Then it gets worse. He secretly funded the invention of the electric chair, specifically using his rival's AC power to associate it with death in the public's mind. Finally, he stooped to paying neighborhood kids to bring him stray animals, which he publicly electrocuted. He even famously filmed the electrocution of an elephant. He basically sacrificed all of his ethics just to protect his market share.
Let's move to Section 4, Patents and Monopolies, Protecting the Empire. Even though Edison eventually lost the War of the Currents to Tesla and Westinghouse, who, by the way, illuminated the 1893 World's Fair and harnessed Niagara Falls with AC power, Edison's ruthless tactics only escalated as he pivoted to new ventures. And this leads to one of my absolute favorite historical paradoxes, the accidental creation of Hollywood. So, Edison patented the kinetograph, which was the first effective motion picture camera. For nearly a decade, his company aggressively monopolized the early American film market. He was so ruthless with suing his competitors over patent rights that independent filmmakers literally packed their bags and fled across the entire country to a tiny, sunny California suburb just to get out of Edison's legal reach. So, by fiercely protecting his empire, Edison accidentally gave birth to Hollywood. Crazy, right? It's super vital to contrast these two figures side by side to grasp this true tale of two inventors. On one hand, you have Edison. He fiercely protected his bottom line, launched terrifying propaganda wars, and built massive commercial empires completely at the expense of his ethics. On the other hand, we have Tesla. When Westinghouse's company was facing bankruptcy, Tesla literally tore up his own lucrative AC royalty contract. We're talking about a contract that would have made him the richest man in the world, and he destroyed it just to help his partner survive. Tesla chose altruism over wealth. And sadly, he died in poverty, while Edison died a massively wealthy icon. This brings us to our final section, a complex moral legacy, evaluating the wizard. 1093. We absolutely cannot ignore that monumental output of patents. From revolutionizing alkaline batteries to making the phonograph affordable so everyone could enjoy music in their homes, Edison's sheer willpower practically built the modern world. It's exactly why popular newspapers and magazines consistently voted him as America's most useful citizen for 2 straight decades. He completely transformed the human experience. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final question. Does changing the world excuse the dark methods used to conquer it? You really have to weigh his brilliant, world-altering innovations against his deeply flawed business tactics. He proved that genius is indeed 99% perspiration, but he also showed us that relentless ambition can deeply compromise our humanity. It's a fascinating, deeply challenging legacy. And I'll leave you with that final thought to ponder.